AITA for telling the truth after my ex pretended to be the victim? My name is Lillian, and I used to think silence was the best kind of closure, but silence doesn't always stop someone who refuses to let go. It's been 5 months since I ended things with Lucas. 5 long, messy, and sometimes painfully quiet months. I found out he was cheating, not by accident, not through whispers, but in the most undeniable way possible. He'd left his laptop open one morning before work, and there it was, a thread of messages between him and another girl. Her name glowed at the top of the screen, familiar somehow, someone we'd both known from college. The messages were long, emotional, full of those little private phrases that once belonged to us. He called her the same nickname he used for me, and he sent her pictures, some of them from our dates, from our favorite coffee shop, from our trips. It was as if he'd taken every memory we made and repainted it with her face. I remember sitting there on the edge of the bed, frozen. My coffee went cold in my hands as I scrolled for nearly an hour, unable to stop. It felt like reading the story of someone else's life until I realized it was my own. When he came home that night, he kissed me on the forehead and asked what I wanted for dinner. I didn't say a word. I just nodded, pretending I hadn't seen anything. That night, while he laughed at something on TV, I sat on the couch beside him and memorized the moment, the sound of his voice, the way he smiled, because I knew it would be the last time I'd ever see it the same way. 2 days later, I ended it calmly with no screaming, no tears, no dramatic exit, just the truth laid bare. I know, Lucas, I said. I saw the messages. His face changed instantly. The color drained from it as he stammered, tried to grab my hands, said it was a mistake, that he didn't mean anything by it, that it was just emotional, not physical, as if that made it better. He begged, cried, told me he'd do anything to fix it, but when trust is gone, everything means nothing. So I left and I blocked him on everything. For a while, I felt peace. I got back into a rhythm. Work, the gym, late night talks with my best friends Michaela and Margaret. They kept me grounded, reminding me who I was before Lucas made me small, and I even started painting again, something I'd stopped because he once told me it was a waste of time. But last weekend, that piece cracked. It started on a quiet Saturday night. I was halfway through cleaning up dinner when my phone buzzed with a Facebook message from Landon, one of Lucas's old friends. The name alone made my stomach tighten as the message preview read, "Hey, Lucas wanted me to reach out. He just wants you to hear him out." I froze. I didn't open it. I didn't even delete it right away. I just stared at the screen, feeling that same old exhaustion creeping back in, the kind I thought I'd left behind. I told myself not to read it, but by the next morning, curiosity won. The message was long, paragraphs and paragraphs. Lucas had clearly written it and sent it through Landon's account. He'd written things like, "I just wish you'd given me a chance to explain, and you know I'd never hurt you on purpose." Then came the excuses. He wasn't sorry for cheating. He was sorry that I misunderstood what happened. He said I overreacted and that I'd walked away too fast. He even claimed that we'd once talked about working through mistakes like adults. I don't know which part made me angrier, the arrogance or the fact that he was rewriting the story to make himself the victim. Then, at the end of his message, he wrote, "If I had caught you doing the same, I would have forgiven you because my love for you was real. You'll always be my Lillian." I almost laughed, as I could feel my hands shaking, not from sadness, but from frustration because he still thought he could twist the truth and he still thought I'd listen. For a few minutes, I stared at the message, torn between blocking him again and replying just once, and then that calm, collected part of me, the one that had been learning to breathe again, burned, not in rage, but in clarity. So I unblocked Landon for 1 minute, typed my message, and hit send. "You don't get to rewrite what happened, Lucas. You cheated. You lied. You made your choices, and I made mine. You don't love me. You loved control. You loved knowing I'd always forgive you, even when I shouldn't. I don't hate you. I don't even think about you anymore. But I need you to understand something. I'm happy now. I sleep through the night. I laugh again. And you don't get to touch that piece. Please stop. For both of us." Then I blocked him again. At first, it felt powerful, like the final word he'd never get to twist, but closure, I've learned, doesn't always feel clean. Sometimes it comes with echoes. That night, I kept replaying everything in my mind. The years I'd spent trying to make things work, the little moments that used to mean everything, like how he'd text me good morning every day, or how he'd pick up coffee for me without asking. I used to think those were signs of love, but now I realize they were just ways to keep me tethered. The next few days were quiet, but tension lingered like a bruise. Mutual friends started messaging me out of nowhere. Small things like, "Hey, how how've you been? Or, did you ever talk to Lucas again? It didn't take long to realize he'd been talking, spinning a new version of the story wherein his version, I'd been cold, I'd given up too easily. He said he'd made one mistake and I'd punished him for it. It was classic Lucas, always needing to be the one wrong. One night, Michaela called me after running into him at a bar. She said he looked rough, like he hadn't slept much, and apparently, he'd started telling people he just wanted closure, that he was trying to make peace. She told me not to worry, but I could hear the tension in her voice. And then, 2 days later, I saw him. I was walking out of a cafe downtown when I heard my name. I turned, and there he was, standing across the street, hands in his pockets, looking smaller somehow. And for a moment, I froze as he started walking toward me. Lillian, he said quietly, can we just talk? I didn't answer. My pulse was pounding, but my voice stayed even as I said, there's nothing left to say, Lucas. He tried to smile and said, you don't have to be cold. I just wanted to explain. That night, the messages, it wasn't what it looked like. I almost laughed again and replied, that's what you said the first time, and the second, and the third. He flinched and said, I made a mistake, okay? Everyone does. But we had something real. You can't just erase that. I'm not erasing anything, I said. I'm remembering it exactly as it was. He looked at me for a long time, searching for something in my face, and when he didn't find it, he sighed and said softly, you've changed. Yeah, I said, that's the point, and then I walked away. I wish I could say that message was the end, that after I told Lucas to stop, he simply faded into the background of my life like a shadow that finally learned its place. But 2 months later, he found a new way in, because people like Lucas never really stop when they lose control. It started on a Wednesday afternoon. I was at work, halfway through answering client emails, when I noticed a new message pop up in my inbox with the subject line reading, one last thing. At first, I didn't even register who it was from. Then my stomach dropped as I realized it was from Lucas. He had somehow gotten my work email, the one that wasn't linked to any of my social media, the one I used only for professional contacts. He had no reason to know it, no access to it, and yet there it was. My hands hovered over the mouse. I should have deleted it. I knew I should have. But curiosity, that dangerous, lingering habit that comes from once loving someone who hurt you, won. The email wasn't angry this time. It was almost desperate. He said he'd been reflecting, that he'd started therapy and was finally understanding everything. He wrote paragraphs about how lonely he'd been, how nobody talks to him anymore, how all our mutual friends had taken my side. He said losing me was the wake-up call he needed, and he said he didn't want me back. He just wanted closure. That part almost made me laugh because he'd had closure. I gave it to him the day I walked away, quietly, completely, permanently. Still, I sat there for a moment, reading his words over and over again. The part that stung wasn't his regret. It was how performative it felt, like he wasn't actually sorry, but just hated losing. I didn't reply, not a single word. I blocked his email, flagged the message as spam, and tried to move on, but 2 days later, he found another way in. That Saturday morning, I noticed my phone buzzing nonstop with notifications from Instagram. A few mutual friends, people I hadn't spoken to in months, had tagged me in old photos, and underneath, there were comments from Lucas like, some memories never fade. Still can't believe how happy we were back then, and glad to see you're doing well. It was subtle enough that it didn't look like harassment to anyone else. But to me, it was like he'd just kicked down a door I'd been trying to keep shut. I felt exposed, angry, trapped all over again as he was using nostalgia as a weapon, twisting happy memories into a leash. And the worst part was that some people started replying to him with things like, you two were perfect together, or man, I miss you guys. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, my mind replaying every word he'd written, every subtle jab disguised as affection. So I messaged him one last time, short, calm, and cold. Lucas, stop trying to find ways to reach me. I've made it clear where I stand. This isn't healing, it's harassment. Please, move on with your life. I already have. He didn't reply, but the next morning, all the comments were gone, and for a while, I thought maybe that was it. Maybe he'd finally understood, but I should have known better. 2 weeks later, I got a call from an unknown number. It was late, almost midnight, and I didn't answer, but the next morning, I listened to the voicemail, and it was him saying, I miss the way things used to be, Lillian. That's all. Just 9 words, soft, almost harmless, but hearing his voice again made my chest tighten. I didn't cry this time. I didn't even shake. I just sat there, listening to the quiet after his voice faded out, and that's when I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't scared. I was done. The next morning, I changed my phone number. I told Michaela and Margaret, my closest friends, not to give it out to anyone. I even switched to a new email account, deleted my old social media, and made my profiles private, but Lucas wasn't ready to let go. A few days later, Michaela called me, her voice shaky, saying, Lillian, you're not going to like this. Apparently, Lucas had shown up at her workplace. Yes, her workplace. Pretending he was just passing by. He asked about me, said he was worried, said he just wanted to make sure I was okay. She told him to leave. He smiled, thanked her, and said, "Tell her I'm not the bad guy she thinks I am." When Michaela told me, I felt that familiar nausea crawl up my throat because he wasn't just lingering. He was stalking. I considered going to the police, but what would I even report? He hadn't threatened me. He hadn't done anything illegal. He was just there, constantly reminding me he existed. Then, one night, I came home to find an envelope taped to my front door with no address, no postage, just my name, handwritten, and inside was a letter that wasn't long, but it was enough to send chills down my spine. "You used to say I was your home. I'm just trying to find my way back." That's when I realized it wasn't about love anymore. It was about obsession. He couldn't handle that I'd taken control of the story, that I got to walk away first. That night, I didn't sleep. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every car passing outside made me flinch. And the next morning, I called the police. They told me to keep records, take pictures, and avoid contact. It wasn't much, but it was something. Over the next few weeks, things were tense. I started noticing cars slowing down near my apartment, unfamiliar footsteps outside late at night. Maybe it was paranoia, maybe not, but I couldn't live like that anymore. So I packed my things, found a new place, a small apartment 2 towns over, and didn't tell anyone except Michaela and Margaret where I'd gone. The end. You are not AITA, Lillian. Your narrative reveals courage dressed as composure, resolve wrapped in restraint, and insight earned through pain. What Lucas did was not a mere lapse of judgment. It was a pattern of manipulation masked as affection. He invaded your peace repeatedly, weaponized nostalgia, and disguised control as longing. When someone cannot respect boundaries after being told to stop, their actions cease to be romantic persistence and become coercive insistence. You recognize that distinction clearly, and that clarity is what absolves you. My personal perspective, silence may once have been your shield, but you transformed it into a sword. You moved from quiet endurance to active self-preservation, an evolution that many never achieve. The manner in which you handled each intrusion, measured, deliberate, never cruel, shows emotional maturity of rare precision. You didn't retaliate, you responded. You didn't collapse under guilt, you recalibrated your boundaries. When he turned apologies into performances, you saw through the script and refused to audition for another act. That's not vindictive, that's intelligent. A few thoughts for your path ahead. Healing from someone who re-enters your life under the guise of remorse requires structural defenses, not just emotional ones. Document everything. Involve legal channels where appropriate, and ensure that your support network remains tight and informed. Therapy could be a constructive space to decompress the residue of fear and reclaim confidence in your own intuition. You deserve to exist without flinching at shadows or decoding apologies disguised as confessions. From a reflective stance, what strikes me most is the paradox of control. Lucas's fixation wasn't driven by affection, but by the collapse of dominance. Losing you meant losing the narrative where he played both hero and victim. His behavior followed the logic of obsession, not love. Real affection liberates. His sought to imprison. That's why every one last message wasn't an act of reconciliation. It was an attempt at re-entry. And you, standing guard at your own door, chose peace over chaos. That decision is moral, not selfish. For a trace of joke amid the heaviness. Relationships like that are like expired milk. You keep checking the smell, hoping it's still fine, until one day you realize the problem isn't your nose. It's that the milk has always been bad. You finally poured it out, and that was the day your kitchen stopped stinking. In essence, the ethical weight falls entirely on Lucas. You acted with integrity, composure, and justified caution. There's nothing vindictive in refusing further contact with someone who consistently violates your trust. The line between forgiveness and foolishness lies exactly where you drew it. So, in unambiguous terms, you are not AITA. You are a survivor reclaiming authorship over your own story. Keep that authorship sacred, because those who try to rewrite your life without your permission have already shown they don't deserve a single line in it. Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know your favorite part in the comments. AITA for telling my older sister she can't use my card anymore after she took advantage of me. My name is Reagan, and for a long time, I thought helping family meant saying yes, even when it hurt me. But lately, I've started to wonder if saying no might actually be the kindest thing I can do. I'm 21, a college student living in a small apartment close to campus. I work part-time at a bookstore, and every dollar I earn has a purpose. Rent, groceries, tuition, everything fits into careful little boxes on my budgeting app. I'm proud of how I've managed to stay independent. I don't have much, but what I have, I've earned. My sister, Louisa, is 10 years years older than me. She still lives at home with our parents, and though she works part-time at a salon, she's always had trouble holding down a steady job. Growing up, she was the golden one, funny, outgoing, the kind of person who could charm anyone. I was quieter, more cautious. If Louisa was a storm, I was the calm after it. When I got my first credit card, I was so proud. I'd worked for that moment, building credit, learning responsibility. When I told Louisa, she was genuinely happy for me. She said I was finally becoming an adult, and for a moment, I felt like she saw me differently, like she respected me. But that didn't last long. A few weeks later, she texted, "Hey, my paycheck's late again. Can I use your card for gas? I'll pay you back in a few days." It seemed harmless. She was my sister. I trusted her. I said yes. Then it happened again and again. At first, it was just little things. Groceries, takeout, coffee runs. But then, the numbers started to creep up. A new outfit here, a night out there, work expenses that somehow always included a new pair of shoes. Every time, she promised she'd pay me back. Sometimes she did. Small amounts, $20 or $40 at a time. But most of the time, there were excuses. "I'll send it when I get my next paycheck. You know I'm good for it. You make more than me right now anyway." That last one stung. I told myself not to overthink it. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting about. But slowly, resentment started building inside me. Every time my phone buzzed with a purchase notification, I felt my stomach twist. One night, I logged into my credit card app to check my balance. When I saw the number, $972.46, my heart dropped. I hadn't spent more than $200 that month. The rest was her. I remember sitting there in the dark, staring at the screen, feeling this mixture of anger and disbelief. I didn't even know how to start the conversation. She'd always been the dominant one, louder, bolder, unshakable. But this time, I couldn't stay silent. When I finally called her, she answered on the second ring. Her voice was cheerful at first, like nothing was wrong. But the second I brought up the card, her tone changed. "Reagan, relax. I told you I'll pay it back. You're acting like I'm some stranger who scammed you." I tried to stay calm. "Louisa, it's not about the money. It's my credit. I need to keep my balance low. It's my name, not yours." She sighed like I was being dramatic. "You think I don't know that? I'm your sister, not some thief. Don't make this a big deal." But it was a big deal. She just refused to see it. That night, I decided I wasn't sharing the card number anymore. I told her it was maxed out. She didn't argue, and for the first time in months, I felt a little peace. But peace never lasts long with Louisa. 2 weeks later, I got a text from my bank. "Suspicious activity detected on your account." I opened the app and saw it. Another $180 charge. A clothing store in town. The name on the receipt, Louisa Rivera. She'd memorized my card number. My hands were shaking when I called her. I could barely hold my phone. "Louisa, what did you do?" She didn't even sound guilty. "Relax. I was going to tell you. I just needed a few things for work." "You act like I stole from you." "You did, Louisa. You used my card without permission." "Permission? You've been letting me for months. You said it was fine. That was before you lied about paying me back." There was silence. Heavy, sharp silence. Then she took a breath and said, almost coldly, "You've changed. Ever since you moved out, you act like you're better than me. Like you forgot where you came from." My voice cracked when I said, "You're the one who changed, Louisa, not me." I hung up, and then, shaking, I called the bank and canceled the card. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls from her and 3 angry texts. "You embarrassed me. You didn't have to go that far. You really think you're perfect, huh?" Then came one from Mom. "Alicia, call me now." When I did, she sounded disappointed. "Your sister is upset. She said you canceled a card she needed for work." "Reagan, you shouldn't do that without talking to her first." "Mom," I said, trying not to cry. "She used my card behind my back." Mom sighed. "She's your sister, Reagan. Family helps family." That line cut deeper than I expected. Family helps family, even if one of them keeps taking and taking until there's nothing left. For days, I felt like the villain. Even though I knew I was right, I couldn't stop second-guessing myself. Every time my mom texted, I felt a rush of guilt. Every time Louisa's name popped up on my screen, my chest tightened. Then, one night, I got a text from Louisa. "You've made your point. Hope your precious credit was worth losing your sister." I didn't reply, but the silence didn't feel peaceful this time. It felt heavy. A week later, she showed up outside my apartment. I wasn't expecting her. I saw her through the window, pacing by my door. I hesitated before opening it. She looked tired, hair messy, face pale. She wasn't angry at first. She was quiet. But the moment I told her she couldn't come in, she snapped. "Really? I can't even come inside now? What? Are you afraid I'll steal your couch?" "Louisa, please," I said softly. "I just need space." "Space?" she repeated, laughing bitterly. "You've got all the space you want. You've got your apartment, your card, your perfect little life. You think you're better than everyone now." Her voice got louder. I kept mine steady. "I don't think I'm better than you," I said. "I just think I deserve boundaries." That word, boundaries, set her off like a spark in a dry field. "You sound just like one of those self-help podcasts you're obsessed with. You think saying no makes you strong? You're just selfish." I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. And eventually, she ran out of words. She looked at me, angry, hurt, maybe even scared, and then she left. When the door clicked shut, I sat down on the floor and cried. Not because because I missed her, but because I finally realized I couldn't fix her. After that night, things were cold between us. My mom tried to play peacemaker, but every call turned into the same argument. You need to forgive your sister. She's under stress. You're both stubborn. But forgiveness isn't the same as trust. And once trust is gone, you can't just rebuild it with words. For the first time in my life, I stopped chasing peace and started protecting it. I changed my passwords. I froze my credit. I even opened a new account at a different bank. It felt lonely at first, but slowly, it also started to feel like freedom. I thought that was the end of it, but family drama never ends cleanly. For weeks, I kept my distance. No calls, no texts, no sudden knocks on my apartment door. I thought maybe, just maybe, the silence meant peace this time. I'd started sleeping better, eating better, and actually focusing on school without waiting for my phone to buzz with another crisis. Then one night, while I was closing up at the bookstore, my phone rang. It was Mom, Alicia. Her voice was serious, softer than usual. Reagan, can you come by the house tomorrow? Louisa wants to talk to you. It's important. Immediately, my chest tightened. Is she okay? I asked, half expecting Mom to say something dramatic. She's been going through a lot. Please, Mija, just come. I almost said no. I almost told her that I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. But something in her tone, that tired, motherly mix of guilt and hope, made it hard to refuse. So the next day, I went. The moment I stepped into our parents' house, the air felt heavy, familiar, but suffocating. The same beige walls, the same ticking clock that somehow always made silence louder. Louisa was sitting at the kitchen table, hair pulled back, wearing an old sweatshirt I hadn't seen in years. She looked small, not physically, but emotionally. Her eyes were puffy, her nails chipped, her shoulders slumped like she hadn't slept in days. Mom hovered near the counter, pretending to wash dishes, but clearly listening. Hey, Louisa said quietly. Hey, I answered, sitting across from her. She didn't look at me right away. She stared at the table, tapping her nails nervously before finally speaking. I lost my job, she said. At the salon. I blinked. What? She swallowed hard. They said I violated policy. The boss found out I'd been ordering products online, using your card. She thought I was scamming the business. It was a misunderstanding, but they didn't believe me. Her voice cracked on the last word. I could tell she was embarrassed, not angry this time, not defensive, just defeated. I sat there in silence, unsure what to feel. Part of me wanted to say you did this to yourself, but another part of me, the part that still remembered late-night laughter and shared secrets, just felt tired. She rubbed her temples and sighed. I know I messed up. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just thought I could fix things before you found out. Then, almost too quietly, she said, I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that comes with excuses or tears. Just a small, fragile word that barely made it across the table. I didn't trust it, not yet, but it felt real enough that for the first time, I didn't feel the need to argue. I just nodded. Mom smiled weakly, like she'd been waiting for that moment for weeks. After that day, things got quieter again. I didn't text Louisa, and she didn't text me. But a week later, she finally did. Louisa got a new job. Real one this time. No cards involved. Louisa, also, I paid off $400 from your balance. I stared at the message for a long time, unsure what to say. $400 wasn't everything, but it was more than I expected. I typed back, thanks. That means a lot. She didn't reply, but that was okay. Over the next few weeks, I noticed little changes. Mom called less to guilt me into family dinners. Louisa stopped posting passive-aggressive quotes on Instagram. And I, for the first time in years, stopped flinching every time my phone buzzed. Still, there were moments of tension. One night, when I dropped by to see Mom, Louisa came home unexpectedly. The moment she saw me, her smile faltered. Didn't know you'd be here, she said flatly. I was just visiting Mom, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. We stood there, awkwardly quiet, until Mom broke the tension by asking Louisa about her new job. Apparently, she'd started working as a receptionist at a dental clinic. She seemed proud, in her own restrained way. But then, just when I thought we were having a normal conversation, she looked at me and said, You really think I'm a bad person, don't you? The question caught me off guard. No, I said quickly. I think you made bad choices. That's not the same thing. She scoffed. You always sound so righteous, Reagan. Like you've got everything figured out. I felt my throat tighten. I don't. I just stopped letting people walk over me. People? Or me? Both. That was the moment the air went cold again. She shook her head, muttered something under her breath, and walked out of the kitchen. Mom didn't say anything. She just sighed, like she'd seen this all before. That night, I cried in my car before driving home. Not because I regretted anything, but because standing your ground against family hurts in a way nothing else does. The next morning, I woke up to a text. Louisa, sorry about last night. I still get defensive. Working on it. It wasn't much, but it was something. Weeks passed. Slowly, we found a rhythm. Not the close, inseparable bond we used to have, but something steadier. Distant, but peaceful. Then one afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. A check, handwritten, dated, and signed by Louisa Rivera. The full remaining balance she owed me. There was a sticky note attached. You were right to stop me. I just didn't want to admit you were the grown-up now. I stared at it for a long time before realizing I was crying. That night, I drove to my parents' house again. She was in the backyard, smoking quietly, the orange glow of the cigarette lighting her tired face. I handed her the note back and said, "You didn't have to." She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I did. For the first time in months, we talked, really talked, about our childhood, about mom and dad, about how hard it was to unlearn the habit of guilt and obligation." She admitted she'd been jealous of me, not because I had more, but because I knew when to stop giving. And when I left that night, she hugged me. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't tearful. It was just honest. "You are not the AITA. Reagan, what you did wasn't selfish. It was self-preserving, and there's a crucial difference between those two things. People love to preach about unconditional love when it benefits the person taking, but rarely when it protects the person giving. You weren't denying your sister compassion. You were denying her access to your stability. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. Here's the truth. Setting limits doesn't make you cold-hearted. It makes you conscious. You learned what many adults never do. That family isn't a blank check of forgiveness. It's a living relationship that requires balance, and you realized you were the only one maintaining it. You didn't slam a door in Luisa's face. You simply stopped leaving it unlocked for someone who kept wandering in and rearranging your peace. What fascinates me here is how your story captures a quiet rebellion, not one of anger, but of awakening. You discovered that kindness without boundaries becomes currency for exploitation. You saw through the illusion that love means tolerating endless chaos. You didn't seek revenge, you sought restoration. That's a subtle but profound act of maturity. Let's talk about your family's favorite phrase. Family helps family. It sounds noble, but in practice, it often becomes a slogan for emotional manipulation. Your mother's guilt tripping wasn't evil, but it came from generational conditioning, the belief that unity matters more than accountability. Yet you broke that cycle. You proved that you can love your sister deeply while still refusing to let her rewrite your limits. And then there's Luisa, a complex character, wounded but not wicked. Her arc reads like a slow, unraveling of entitlement. She mistook your generosity for obligation, then your independence for superiority. But in time, she faced herself, losing her job, losing control, and finally, losing the narrative. Her apology wasn't perfect, but it was a first step toward humility. The check she sent wasn't just repayment, it was symbolic, a receipt for her personal growth. If I were sitting across from you right now, I'd tell you this. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means releasing resentment while still locking your doors. You can love her from afar and still demand respect up close. That's emotional intelligence, not distance. Now, about the tone of your story, there's a quiet kind of joke to it, the sort that sneaks in between the heartbreak and the healing. It's the irony that you were labeled selfish for finally behaving like an adult, while the one who misused your trust was framed as the victim. That's life's dark little wing, the cosmic joke of growing up faster than those who raised you to be nice. But you handled it with poise, not pettiness. You didn't scream or shame. You let reality do the talking, and that's the most dignified form of justice. You also modeled something powerful, self-repair. Most people think closure comes from someone else's apology, but you proved that closure is a solo act. You rebuilt your finances, reclaimed your autonomy, and learned that solitude isn't punishment, it's peace with walls. You traded chaos for quiet, and though that quiet stung at first, it later sang like freedom. So, my final judgment, and I won't hedge here, is that you are not the AITA. You didn't choose cruelty, you chose sanity. You didn't destroy your relationship, you exposed its cracks. You didn't abandon your sister, you abandoned the version of yourself who kept apologizing for wanting peace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments, and let us know which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out AITA for exposing my dad's dark secret and cutting him off. Click here to watch it now.